Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and today we do not have another book review. We have been going with random videos here and there, but that's just because, as you'll see today, the amount of books I've been reading has gone down a little bit, and so I've been trying to fill in the content with other still creative and still enjoyable content. But don't worry, the book reviews will still come, and there's a couple coming soon in the next week. But today we will be talking about my half-year wrap-up so far. So today I'll just guide you through my stats over the Storygraph. If you don't know the Storygraph, it is an amazing website, kind of like Goodreads, but I enjoy it more because it has a few more detailed parts in what you read and how your year has been going. And I enjoy seeing all those, and I hope you enjoy too, otherwise this video would be a bit of a mess. But otherwise, after that, I will be talking about which books I like the most in this half of the year, which books I like the least, and hopefully let's hope that the next half year will be even better, and you'll be able to compare by the end of the year if I enjoyed more books or if I read books that were worse. So let's get on with it. Alright, so this is the Storygraph. As you can see, we have a few things here. You have the Explore, which you can explore books, stats, challenges, community giveaways. I've explained this website a couple of times. I don't need to explain it anymore, I think. But either way, I'm looking at the stats part of it, and it has a couple of things that I don't really use, like the streaks, because I don't update my status every day. I should, but I just forget to do it. But either way, you can actually see here different categories, different times, whatever you choose. Let's just focus on this half of the year. So one of the first things that I want to say is that my challenges are very delayed. So my reading challenge, I challenged myself to read 80 books. Currently, I've read 32 books, so I'm 8 books behind because half of the year has gone by. I should have read 40, I'm 32. I know I will try to pick up. Hopefully, I'm able to reach this goal. And the other goal I had was a page challenge. For this one, I challenged myself to read 32,000 pages, which I don't remember exactly, but I split 32,000 over 80 books, and it gave me an amount that I thought, I think I can do it. I'm delayed as well, although I am slightly ahead because I'm 43% done in this challenge, whereas in the book challenge I'm only 40%, but still I'm like 2,000 something pages delayed, as you can see here. Moving on to the stats that really matter. So as you can see, I've read 32 books, 13,000 pages. An average time to finish is 13 days. Most of these are because of, one, the web novel that I'm reading, Lord Mysteries, because I don't read it as fast as other books, so it takes me a long time. And the other one is my buddy read. I always have a buddy read that I go, and those ones we only read a couple chapters every week, so those ones also take a few months sometimes to finish. In terms of moods of books that I read, I mean, very obvious that adventurous is the top one because I read a lot of fantasy. Fantasy is usually associated with adventure, but this year, funny enough, the dark category has gone up quite a lot, again, with Game of Thrones, and also books such as Parable of the Talents, Parable of the Sower. Those are quite dark, so it doesn't surprise me that this has increased. And it kind of reflects a bit the year that we're having, which can be quite dark. And then we have other categories with a bit less, like lighthearted, tense, emotional, challenging, funny, mysterious, and then a bit of relaxing and a bit of hopeful. And as for the pacing of the books, the majority is medium, makes sense. Then we have a couple of slow books and a few fast ones. I think fast ones would probably be mostly manga, like One Piece that I read, which is always very fast-paced. And the slow ones could be potentially, for example, Judas Unchained, which is a book I finished recently and will come out next week, the review, I think. As for number of pages, the majority is either really big or really small. The really small ones are manga, like I just said. I read a few manga volumes, and all of those have less than 300 pages. Whereas the majority of the other books are really big, like Game of Thrones, like Judas Unchained. They're all very chunky, and that's another reason why it's been taking me a long time to read them, because a lot of pages. Of course, the entirety of the books I've read this year were fiction. There were any non-fiction. I should really fix that. Lynn will try to read at least one non-fiction. Let's see if I can do that this year. And then a really good part that I really enjoy is the genres. So obviously the big one will be fantasy. I've read so far 28 books that are fantasy, and then, like I mentioned, 13 that are manga. This was entirely One Piece. All right, 13 volumes so far. It's not that many. It's probably 2 per month, which is okay. Again, we'll try to improve this. And then historical. This, I was surprised. And if I click on this, I can actually see which books I can read that are historical fiction. So you can see Northern Wrath, Shackled Fates, Babel, and Blackout. I wouldn't consider these a historical fiction. I mean, kinda. I can see why, but yeah, okay, yeah, they're all historical fiction. But I was very surprised that historical fiction made it so high. Higher than science fiction, which, I mean, I'm supposed to be reading just as much science fiction as fantasy. This is clearly not happening. And then we have LGBTQIA with 2 books. I'm actually curious which books were these. Oh, The Rise of Kyoshi and Legends of Martyrs. Okay, that makes sense. I definitely need to finish The Rise of Kyoshi because the first one was really good, and you can see that I gave it 4.5. This is because the categories here on the story graph are entire units, so 4, 5, or halves, or quarters. So you can put 4.25, 4.5, 4.75. And that will matter further on when I show you the scores that I gave. But going back, we also have some speculative fiction, dystopian, young adult, and literary. Which one? Oh, this is probably Black. Oh no, Babel. I'm surprised Babel is considered literary. Okay, literary. Interesting. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be Blackout because it's so focused on World War II. But anyway, okay. Well, in terms of format, the majority is print because, as you can see, all the books here are print. The only ones I've read in the digital format was Lord of the Mysteries Volume 1, and soon there will be Volume 2 as well. But yeah, and then which were the authors most read? Eiichiro Oda, which is the author of One Piece, here it is with 13. George R. R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones with 4 books, soon to be 5. And Till the Cold Halt, who is the author of those 2 books that I just mentioned, Northern Wrath and Shackled Fates. I'm surprised I haven't read more books of the same authors. I guess I'm diversifying, which is a good thing to look at. And then this is the part that I'm a little bit ashamed because my year started off really well. This is just the number of books and pages that I've read so far in the year. So as you can see, January, I read 4 books, although they weren't very big in general because I only read 1,400 pages. But then February was an amazing month where I read 10 books, and I read, on average, they were like 450 pages. That's pretty good in my eyes. And then March decreased a bit. This was mostly due to work because I was away from my home, so I just didn't have my routine. I was reading less, it was very busy, so that suffered a bit. So then in April, I tried to improve a bit, and it improved a bit, so I read 6 books. They were quite good. And then in May, it decreased a bit. I read 5 books, and they were smaller, way smaller. And then in June, last month, it was even worse because I only read 3 books. Okay, that in terms of pages, I read more or less the same amount as in May, but only 3 books. That's not good at all. So this month, July, I definitely need to increase this. I mean, I'm almost finishing 2 books. One of them is A Dance with Dragons by George R. R. Martin, which is the buddy read. I'm also almost finishing the book that I'm reading, which is Malazan's Book of the Fallen, the first one, Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. And I'm very keen to give a review of that. And then the other one is Lord of the Mysteries. I have less than 100 chapters left to finish. And again, once those 3 are done, I will be able to read even more. Hopefully also a few manga volumes because I haven't read any One Piece in a while, so I'm curious to go back. But yeah, I really need to pick up. That's the theme of this video, is that I need to pick up my reading and I really need to deliver more reviews. And then the final graph we have is the ratings. So as you can see here, you see that I have given half stars, quarter stars, all of that. And this gives us a more detailed range of where I'm sitting. So it seems like the majority of the books I give are 4.5 stars, which I have 10 books in this category. And the worst is 3.5, and we can click and see which one it was. It was Artemis. I remember reading this book. I remember not enjoying it that much. 3.5, pretty good. I think in the actual review I gave for this book in the channel was 3.4, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was not very good, to be honest. I think it was the weakest of the Andy Weir books, considering I think Project Hail Mary is my top one, then Martian, then Artemis. But going back, you can see then there are 3.75. I don't remember which ones there was. Okay, Legends and Lattes. Yeah, this one was not a disappointment, but I expected a lot more from it, unfortunately. And Blackout was good, but it had some issues. I hope the second one is better. I haven't bought the second one, so I still need to do that and read it. And then Salute the Dark, Shadows of the Act. That was an unfortunate one. It's this one here. And this is the problem. This series started off really well. Actually, there's kind of some similarities between this series and Malazan Book of Fallen, the first one, Gardens of the Moon, but just some similarities. They're nothing alike otherwise. But the thing is, this series started off quite well, and it's been very up and down, and that is kind of destroying a bit my keenness of reading this series, because I mean, there's 10 books. I've read 4. For them to be 10 books, I think at some point it will get better. And I just need to push for it and hope that it does. Especially because this one seemed to have been the end of one big arc of the story. So I think the next one might be even better. Who knows? Let's just hope so. I might try to read the next one in the next month. Let's see. But going back, yeah, so then I gave 4, 4.25, 4.5, 4.75. Let's see which books were these ones that almost made it to the top. Okay, there's One Piece, there's A Storm of Swords, such a good book. Dragon Steel Prime, I really enjoyed this book. I have spoken with a few people that don't enjoy it as much, that have pinpointed how this is very amateur Brandon, but I still think it's so good in terms of what it is like when it was written and the quality of it. But I can totally understand as well why people think that it is very amateurish, especially considering that all of Brandon Sanderson's books now are so good. And I just received the ebook and audiobook for Isles of Ember Dark, I think that's the name, the newest secret project by Brandon Sanderson, and I will read it soon as well, because I mean, I think that's one of the few books that I'm going to read very quickly to the point where it's released. So I hope I enjoy the hype and that the hype doesn't ruin my expectations. Let's see. But yeah, and then of course the other one was One Piece, and this one, if you know One Piece and you know this cover, you know what it means, you know why it was so close to a 5. And then the 5 ones, I bet there's some One Piece in there. Of course, there's a couple of One Piece One Piece volumes, and then Game of Thrones, the first book of A Song of Ice and Fire, which is such a great book and such a good example of fantasy and in this medieval era. And Parable of the Talents, which is an amazing book, but for a completely different reason. Parable of the Talents is dark, it is very depressing, but it is so good to be read, because you definitely learn a lot, you open your eyes to so many things that exist. So I definitely recommend it. These 2 books I would recommend to anyone in the sense of science fiction or in the sense of fantasy. The 4.75s, I think I would also recommend to a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but quite a lot of people. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So basically, what's the top book I've read in this half of the year? I would have to say Parable of the Talents, simply because it's a new book, whereas Game of Thrones was a reread. I already knew what to expect. It's still an amazing book, but Parable of the Talents really was a mind blown. And the worst book so far, Artemis, that is easy. And I mean, if that's my worst book, I'm not that bad, because Artemis wasn't terrible. It was just meh, let's say. I mean, a bit better than meh, because it was well written, except for some aspects. But yeah, there was a few things that could have been better, a few things that could have been worse. So overall, 3.5, I still consider it quite good, considering. But yeah, what books I'm very keen to read in the next half of the year? Well, like I said, Isles of Ember Dark by Brandon Sanderson. I'm keen to finally get into the Sun Eater series that has been in my bookshelf on my to read section that doesn't show here on this screen for a while, and it's always there. And the other one is the Memory, Sword and Thorn trilogy, which I've also heard really good things. Gotta pick it up. There's so many books to pick up, and I'm reading less, so I need to really step up with my reading. So that's what I'm gonna do after this video. And you let me know, what was your best and your worst book this half of the year? Which one do you recommend? Comment down below, and I shall be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays, except when we're reviewing Lord of the Mysteries, the anime. So yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.